I think we stand out in the industry. We don't look like a typical retirement residence. And I'm not negating other residences. Everybody has their own niche. But when you walk into our building, you're walking into a resort hotel. My residents always say we look like a cruise ship without the water.
In this video, you'll meet Karen Hen, who's the Senior Accommodations Manager at the Dunfield in Toronto, Ontario. And in this video, you'll hear about the values that underlie all the operations at the Dunfield. You'll also hear about the structures that are in place so that residents can age in place. And you'll also hear about how the residence creates a warm and family atmosphere. So why don't you start by telling us 3 things that you love about your job?
Oh my goodness, I think I have about 100, not just 3. I think what I really like about it is the teamwork, number one. We're a family-owned business, so everybody here is treated like family. I love the collegiality. I love my residents. I love getting up in the morning and going to work because every day, not only is it enlightening, it's challenging, but it's fun. And we're like a family here, and I think that's what makes coming to work so enjoyable.
And what drew you to this line of work and ultimately to the Dunfield?
Oh my goodness, how far back do you want me to go? I'll be really brief. I moved to Toronto from St. Catharines when I was in my teens, and I had a variety of jobs. I worked at the U of T library, and from there I became a dental assistant, worked in that position for about 12 years. And then I also became a public school trustee. And when I lost that election in 1994, after 12 years, I saw an ad for a marketing person in a retirement residence that was close to home. And I thought, well, I'll just give it a shot and see what happens. So I had an interview, got hired. I was there for about 1.5 years when I got recruited to another retirement residence in Scarborough. A little bit further from my home, but I thought it was a promotion because I became the marketing manager. And I was there actually for 10 years, not only as the marketing manager, but in my final 3.5 years, I was a general manager. And then I actually was there for 10 years. Then I got recruited again for the Dunfield. And I thought, well, this is, I don't change jobs very often, as you can tell. And so I thought, I'm going to take a look. So I drove in the neighborhood and I saw, I think it was about the 4th or 5th floor, and went for an interview, and the rest is history. I just passed my, technically on paper, 11 years, but I started actually 12 years ago because I was doing lease up as well. So I've been here that many years. I love every day. Every day is a different day. But I've always been kind of in that sort of public relations, working. I think when I started working with seniors, that kind of drew me to this. When I actually moved to Toronto, I lived with my aunt and uncle, but my grandparents were in the same house. So there were my grandparents, my aunt and uncle, my cousins, and me. So it was a real true intergenerational housing.
And with the experience that you've had in the industry, multiple different residences in different areas of the city, what, in your view, makes the Dunfield unique?
I think it's our approach, Carly, to how we work with our seniors, how we care for them, how we respect them. I think we stand out in the industry. We don't look like a typical retirement residence. And I'm not negating other residences. Everybody has their own niche. But when you walk into our building, you're walking into a resort hotel. My residents always say we look like a cruise ship without the water. It's colorful, it's friendly. If you're coming for a tour, you're greeted by the receptionist by your name. I come out to meet you. So we've already made that connection. And I think it's connecting. And I think it's just, for us, we sort of looked at that phrase, retirement is not in our vocabulary, but I think we stole a bit of that from Betty White. But that's basically what it is. We don't look at our residence as a retirement residence. We look at it as enhancing people's lives, enriching their lives, and letting them live the life that they've been living, prior to moving in. when people move to a retirement residence, they're looking for comfort, they're looking for safety, they're looking for activities, socialization, and we think we've done an extremely good job on providing them with all of that. I just look at it, we're unique because we're different, and different in a really good way. And again, because it's family owned, it's a family here, and we're all, I've got 180 grandparents here. It's that real true feeling of an extended family.
And so describing the design of the Dunfield and the way that it makes you feel like you're at a hotel when you come in, what do you think that does to the atmosphere and the kind of culture that you like to create at the Dunfield?
I think what it does is when people walk in, it's a wide open space. I mean, that's what they're looking at. They come in through our doors and it opens up into this beautiful hallway. Our bistro cafe is just to the right, and then reception. And they walk in and they look at it and they say, you know what, this feels different. And for most people, when they walk in, they just say to me, you know what, I could live here. And people are greeting them, they're friendly, they're smiling. They can see what's going on in the building because there's always activity no matter where you are in the building. As far as the culture, I mean, I wouldn't say there's a specific culture. I think it's just that people feel comfortable when they walk in and they say to me, there's a real high sense of energy in this building. And I think that's what attracts them. Oh, and obviously our location, we're young in Eglinton, and that makes a big difference.
I was going to bring up the specific location of the Dunfield, right at Yonge and Eglinton, right by a subway station, in the really kind of busy, high energy area of the city.
Exactly.
So what's the connection? What are the relationships between the area and the residents at the Dunfield?
Well, I think the residents, a lot of them have lived in the area, so they're quite familiar with, the restaurants, the movie theaters, of course, the Yonge Eglinton Center, Canada Square. I think, in our residents, if they're going out, we tell them, please keep one of our cards in your pocket. So the neighborhood knows our residents. Now that Loblaws is here and the liquor board, that's been a real plus. I think it's just the residents feel comfortable and they feel safe in this neighborhood. But they do connect, they connect with the shopkeepers. Of course, now it's a little bit more difficult, but there is a true neighborhood connection here.
And in terms of the independence that a resident has at the Dunfield, they have the ability to treat it like an apartment. They can go and come and go as they please, go to see a movie, go shopping, go to the grocery store,
Sure.
all of that. And because it's so close, that's relatively simple to do.
Right. And I think too, that's one of the things we stress is their independence. Regardless of their limitations, because, and we'll probably get to that later on, but we do offer independent living, we offer assisted living for physical needs, and we offer a memory care floor. So regardless of what their limitations are, they're all individuals, and we want to keep their independence to the best of their ability.
And I was going to ask about the different levels of care that are on offer at the Dunfield. So there's independent assisted living and memory care as well. What happens when a resident is showing signs of needing a heightened level of care or something that isn't being met in the whatever level they have currently at the residence? And how is that communicated with the resident and as well as their family outside of the residence?
Okay, so originally 99% of our residents come in as independent living. We do have, as I say, assisted living and memory care, but for those floors now, we will only admit with a current resident, and they do have priority. So when a resident or when a tour comes in, we sit down, we go through what's called discovery, and we talk about, their wants, their wishes, why are they here? Some people are just starting to look, it's a huge transition, and it's traumatic for a resident who's probably lived in their family home for maybe 40, 50 years or more. And all of a sudden they're deciding I'm moving to a place that's probably a tenth the size of what I'm coming from. So take it the next step, and they do sign up to reserve a suite. Our suites in our independent living are like living in a condo. There are full kitchens, there's washers and dryers, so they're not really losing any independence. We do provide them with an emergency pendant. We will give them their medication if they wish, and we will provide them at some point with a shower assist. But you know, as people age in place, which is what they're doing here, their needs can change. It won't be overnight. It could be 1 year, it could be years. The average age now is about 85, but we have residents in their 60s right through. My oldest is 102. Actually, I think we have 5 now over the 100 mark. So as we see them every day, they are assessed every 6 months under the RHRA. And then because we see them so frequently, we get to see, what are the changes? Why is so-and-so just not remembering, and perhaps they're coming down in the middle of the night. Perhaps they're a little bit more confused. So we will sit down with family and tell them what our observations are. We do a cognitive test every 6 months on our residents. Again, we have to, that's mandated. And if they score below 20 out of 30, it's a red flag for us. But sometimes, you could score 19 and be fully functional. But we have to look at every aspect. Are there some physical changes as well? We meet with the family, we meet with the resident as well. We never meet with the resident on their own unless, until we've discussed with family what our feelings are. If we have availability on a care floor, and usually that conversation isn't going to happen until I'm sure I have a place to put them or place them, and then we can proceed with that. So it's all done very cautiously. Obviously, our major concern is this the right fit for them? And for some people, particularly if it's memory care, we want to make sure that we're doing it at the right time. And unfortunately, sometimes you never know what the right time is going to be, but for the most part, when we've placed people, it's worked out to the betterment of their environment, their own way of feeling. And on my memory care floor, I haven't had a vacancy now in several years. So it's a real credit to our staff. That floor has its own nursing support as well as activity programs. So again, our goal, they're really in their own way independent, and we need to maintain that. So we do it through programming, through the fact that the nurses are there, they're dedicated, so they know their residents. And there's only 14 people on the floor. But the same with assisted living, where their physical needs may change dramatically. So we go through the same process. But again, every time that something like that comes into our minds that we should probably think of changing their environment, there's a long discussion that takes place and very thoughtful before we make the actual move.
And when it gets to the point for a resident that they require a level of care that isn't available at the Dunfields, what is that process like? How do you help them find the solution for that issue?
Because we're an aging in place environment, most of our residents are here until they pass away. For many residents, when they're on the independent floor and for a variety of health issues, they may be palliative care and we don't have space. They can bring in private care through the LHINs or through an agency and remain in their suite. And for some of them, even if we're suggesting long-term care, they're telling us they want their loved one to stay. This is their home. This is where they've lived for X number of years. 2 of my residents are my original residents, so they've been here for 11 years now. And again, it's also, we have to look at the circumstances, and we have to understand their feelings and their thoughts. We just don't discriminately say to somebody, well, their care is getting quite heavy at this point. They need to go to long-term care. And for many of our residents, they don't want to move, regardless of whether they're on an independent floor or whether they're on a care floor, because again, this is their home and our staff are like family to them. So we want to try and keep things as normal as possible. but we always have the options available for family if they wish.
Before it gets to that point, before a resident has even moved in at that point,
Okay.
say if there is a family who are looking at their options and there's some disagreement happening between one party or another, one side is more in favor of making this move than the other. What do you say to them? How do you approach those dynamics that are bringing a lot of emotion and a lot of, for lack of a better word, baggage with them in making this decision?
Well, usually, I mean, my way of dealing with it, I try to establish a rapport with the tour that I'm doing. If it's just the family that's coming in, I try to make sure that the information that they're giving me is honest. I mean, the odd time you're going to get, you know, the siblings will come in and they'll say to me, oh, Karen, you know, mom is fine, or dad. I shouldn't always say mom. They're fine. They use a walker, but you know, they can get up in the morning, they can get dressed, they can do all their ADLs, they can do all those things. And then as we talk further, I ask, you know, well, what do they do on a normal day? You know, what are their meals? Are they eating well? And that you get to, and maybe it's just years of experience, you get to know where you're not getting the full story. And then I will always say, if I haven't met the resident, the prospect, I'll say, you know, before we do anything, I need to meet mom or dad. And mom and dad, or mom or dad will come, and it's a totally different story. And they're not moving. And I mean, I've had situations where, you know, the mother or the father will sit there and the son and the daughter or whatever on the other side of the table. And it's a round table because square tables don't work. They'll say, well, I'm not moving because my daughter told me I have to move. So you really, you know, you have to go with kid gloves and really impress upon the prospect that you don't have to move. That's not why you're here today. You're here just to take a look, walk around with me, take a look at the suites that are available, and then you go home. It is very rarely that, even if they're, you know, really gung-ho on taking the suite, but I know there's hesitation, and the daughter or the son is saying, no, it's okay, mom, we'll put down a deposit and we'll reserve that suite. Everything's going to be fine. And I'll say, but I'm not going to take your deposit. And I think I get looked at like, you know, who are you? But that's not the goal. I mean, it is a business, and obviously, you know, my goal as a manager is to make sure I can keep my occupancy going, but I have to look at the person. They're an individual, and as you say, they're giving up a home. They really don't want to move. This isn't where they want to be, but as they walk around and they see what's going on, they see the activities happening, they start to come around. But you know, I've had people move in here that have been on my wait list for 4 years, and the time wasn't right. And I've had other people on my wait list when we've called them, and then it's too late. And so there's a challenge. But I think for me, it's just building that rapport. And if that rapport carries through and takes me months before they're going to make their mind up, that's okay. I'm not concerned about whether they move in the next day. But yeah, it's difficult. We do face some challenges with families, and there's always a dynamic.
And I know every situation is different and unique and individual to every different person who's looking at this choice. But what do you think, when there is resistance, where do you think that often comes from? Is it a misunderstanding of what retirement living is, or is it or is it an attachment to a certain way of life?
I think it's a bit of both. I think most people, they look at retirement living as the end of the road. They can't separate the feeling from long-term care and retirement residence. And I mean, that's been going on for years, and it's always been like that. But I think, again, when they come in here, they see a different. And if they've been around the community, they've looked at other sites, we're all different. But again, they see something very different when they come in here. And I think that takes away that misconception a little bit. Their perception of the Dunfield is probably very different than what they may have experienced going somewhere else. But again, you know, every retirement residence is different. Everyone offers something different, and in the end, it has to be the right fit. Some people come in here and say, "Oh, I can't move in here; it's so big, and it's bright and it's cheerful," which to me is a plus. But they'll go to another residence which is smaller, feels a little more cozy to them, and that's okay, because I mean, I'm friends with all of my colleagues in the area, all my competitors. We work with one another, and what may not work for somebody here will work somewhere else. And in the end, it's, are they going to be happy? And that's my goal.
And what's a feature that most that you hear cited a lot in terms of what residents most appreciate or find attractive about the Dunfield?
Oh, there's so many. I think choice is number one. They have choices on when they can have their meals. They have choices on suites. They have choices on activities. Um, it's their choice how they want to live their life. We have some residents who've been here for years, and they don't like to participate in activities. They'll come down for their meals. They'll sit in our lounge area at the front of the entrance area, but they don't participate. And that's fine, because this is their home. It's their privacy that we have to respect. We can encourage them, we can try to get them involved, but we're not going to force them. And we want them to live the kind of life that they lived before they got here. That shouldn't change. If they're going out to the various clubs or they're going to lecture series, we have some residents that go to Glendon Hall for the lectures or courses. I mean, that doesn't stop. And I think that's a perception that we try to change. Nothing, when you come here, your life just does not stop. It actually gets a lot better. And they're safe, they're comfortable, they're secure, and they're in a friendly environment.
Can you describe if there are any certain values that the Dunfield likes to incorporate into its operations?
Yeah, I think our value first is a people first value system. We care about the people who come to our building. We look at things like honesty, integrity, consideration, caring, being thoughtful. Respect the person that's here, and respect them in the way that you want to be respected as well, but they are your first priority. So when we come to work every day, we greet our residents. We want them to feel welcome, and we want them to know that we care about them. If they just walk through my door, want to just chat, doesn't matter how busy we are, our time is their time. And I think that's what stands out for us, that we really care, and we're a people first.
What's a favorite menu item that you have?
I know steak is a big one. Believe it or not, wieners and beans. They love their wieners and beans. I couldn't believe that, but yes, they do. We have an excellent executive chef, and all of our sous chef there. The meals are phenomenal. I mean, if you get a chance, just go on our Facebook and see some of the creations, because they're incredible. And our meals change. They have 3 choices every day for lunch and dinner, but we have an a la carte menu as well. So they could come down and have a salad one day, and the next day they could have a hot dog. The fried livers, or the liver's really good too, so that's a big hit. And the desserts. When the chef makes his desserts, we keep hearing about it. So.
And you've been in the industry for a long time and been at the Dunfield for a long time. What are some of the changes that you've seen in the retirement industry, and what do you see coming up next for the Dunfield? Someone who's coming in this year in their 60s, what can they expect to experience or participate in the next decade or so?
Oh, well, unfortunately now with COVID, it is putting a little bit of a damper on what we can or cannot do. But we have 3 ladies who are on our activity department. And so they come up with ideas and activities that our residents really get involved in. Our residents also make suggestions. So I think what we're seeing in changes, we have to evolve with the type of community we have. We're seeing many residents who are coming in now are more inclined to have more lecture series. So now we're going to try and do a lot of like virtual lecture series. We do every Thursday, we do a Rebus puzzle game, which is incredible because I love Rebus, so it's a bit of a challenge. But book clubs, round tables, we do have our 2 swimming pools, so we have aquafit. But again, I think COVID is sort of, we're looking at the COVID issue and saying, what can we do to keep them engaged? And, you know, with social distancing and limiting the number of people that you can have in an activity, we're doing our best to make sure that our residents stay engaged. And I'm not going to say it's easy, but with the activity department we have, and all of us get involved. And I think hopefully over the next few months that things will settle down. I don't want to wager on that one, but they're happy. It was tough at first, you know, the first few months, everybody was like, what do we do? You know, and we do concentrate a lot on the residents who aren't getting as involved, because we do see that people, they get down, you know, they couldn't do the things they wanted to do. Currently they can go out, you know, shopping or somewhere in the community. They can't go overnight anymore. So, you know, it's difficult, but and kudos to my department. The activities, they're just phenomenal with the type of things that they produce. They do a booklet every Thursday, which has games and news that's going around in the residence itself. So the residents, you know, they're happy. I have to say that they are happy.
And what's a memory that stands out with a resident that you've met at the Dunfield in terms of someone who you think about when you think about the purpose of a place like this?
Oh, there's so many. I have to say, I mean, they're all incredible, and they all bring a wealth of history and backgrounds. There is one resident, and I don't want to divulge his age because I think he's 95, but he could be 97. And I apologize if he listens to this at some point, he'll probably yell at me. But when he first came to me, he said, I really don't want to move. I've got a lovely condo. I'm not ready yet. And he was in his 80s. And I said, well, that's fine. You come back. And he said, well, maybe I should. So we had this discussion that went on. And finally said, you know, I am going to move. And he came in. He runs our humor group every week. They just sit around and tell jokes. He's an incredible photographer. He's a former physician. He's just an incredible person, and he's got such a wealth of history and background. And he's always ready to do whatever he can. If we're having an event, he's the one taking the pictures. And I think he stands out. Really, he's the epitome of our residents, because I would say most of them are like that. They want to share their stories. They've got so much to tell us, and they share it with others as well. So he will be really, truly, honestly missed, but he's going to be around for ages. I told him he's going to live to over 100 or more, but he's an incredible person. But they all are. I mean, I single him out only because of what he offers the residents. And there are others who do, you know, things the same way, but there's just something really special about him.
And what's your advice for people who are in the middle of their search now?
I would say keep looking, do your homework. We're not doing tours right now. Unfortunately, we'll do virtual tours. We'll spend as much time with them on the telephone. We'll send them floor plans. What I try to tell them is don't be afraid of COVID. We are doing move-ins. We have very strict protocols as far as the move-in process. And it's a lengthy process. It's not just, you know, I love the suite, here's your deposit and I'm moving in. You know, there's medical forms, there's other things that have to take place. But I would tell the general public that if you are looking, again, do your homework. Look at the area that you want to be in, narrow it down. When the time comes, if we're doing tours or any other place that's doing tours, don't do more than 3 in one day. It's far too much to digest. And in the end, you'll just wonder, well, where have I been? I encourage them, if they're on a tour, take pictures. get as much information as you can, find out cost-wise, are there any, what's included, what's not included. And when you walk away, have a very clear picture. If this is the place that you're going to spend the rest of your life in, number one, this is where you want to be, and just understand totally what it is you're getting. But again, I say, don't be afraid of COVID as far as what it's doing to tours and getting to know the building, because we're here to help you and assist you any way we can. Just do your homework.